Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Brown. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to in your work.
So my name is Bryan Brown. I study how science is taught and learned, particularly with a focus for urban students. And what I mean by urban students is students who are multilingual, multicultural, coming from multiple backgrounds, and in some ways, really dynamic contexts that are the kind of our modern schools. And the principles are fairly basic. That language is important because language lets us know who we are. It's how we choose to sound like particular people, believe it or not, right? We maintain our accents on purpose. We communicate with cultural dialogue. And so I want educators to learn how to both hear and value ways that students speak and communicate. And so I've been working on how to study, how to make sure everyone learns and that kids are really well understood for teaching and learning in science classrooms.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to bump it over to Carrie to ask the first question today.
Hi. What role does science education play in helping our multilingual learners and our English learners develop academic language?
So I think when we think about science, I think we've missed an opportunity. One thing about all language is that it's driven by need. It's driven by context. It is driven by the things that we experience. And so I'll say it differently. The things we talk the most about are the things that we're most fluent about. We know the most about the things we're talking about most often. So it's a misnomer to say, well, we shouldn't teach science or we need to limit the type of science we're teaching to multilingual communities. The exact opposite has to happen. If we want kids to really understand and master new language, we simply need to give them the context to do it. Let me say it differently. If you ask anyone, what's the best way to go to to master a new language, they'll almost uniformly tell you, go to Spain, live there for a few months, a few years, and because you need to use the language, you master it. Science offers that exact same opportunity. If we teach science in the context of the things that kids experience, then they'll master the science and the language associated with that as well. I'm talking to you all on a Tuesday in February, generally known as Mardi Gras. And I would teach lots of lessons about the science of food, the science of marinating, the science of why cooking happens, or just simple things like soaking dishes, right? You soak a dish that is hard to clean. Well, what is the magic that causes the water to make it easier to scrub that pot? Here's why that's important. There's a language of dissolving solute and solvent that is involved in that science, but this is the science that the kids will see regularly. They won't forget it. So the message is that language is about context and necessity. So in the same way you would send someone to a different country and say, that's the best way to master the language, our homes do that. And so we have to do that for our multilingual students so that they can really master the science that they experience.
Fabulous. Thank you, Maria.
So in Delaware, we've come up with some guiding principles that are really the tenets of our work and where we're trying to drive the state for our multilingual learners. One of those principles is based in asset-based and culturally relevant. We say all educators should design culturally and linguistically responsive learning environments that draw on student language and cultural assets. The Department of Education in Delaware is working to try and shift educator mindsets. What are some ways to help ensure educators are drawing on the assets, both culturally and linguistically, of our learners in our classrooms?
That's a great question, and one that I think we inherently know, but it's hard to articulate. So let me start by saying, I'm going back to the same point that I was making before, that situating knowledge, and this is what our cognitive psychologists talk about, that knowledge is situated, therefore we want to put students in situations that require them to master the content, right? So that is to say, a carpenter is phenomenal at measurement, not because they went to math school, but because building the chair, cutting the angle makes you fast. I mean, makes you really, really good at fractions and quick division because the task drives the learning. That's called situated learning. We want to create situations that create the necessity for learning. So then there's this culturally relevant paradigm, which is that we don't just teach people Yeah, we a generic group of people. We teach a specific group of people. And so I need to understand, well, what is the context that they live in so that I can teach what they're experiencing. So I gave you an example from Louisiana. I'm not sure if people celebrate Mardi Gras in Delaware, but I can tell you what, I had one of the best cheesesteaks I've ever had in the state of Delaware. They don't get enough credit, right? So maybe we shift the context to what's happening in the types of kitchen environments, the things that they would experience. So here's my message is that you can't remember all the information anyway. You can only remember the information that you see regularly, that you use. And so that's what culturally relevant pedagogy is about, to say, let me find out where the science lives in the kids' lives, and I will teach that. Because if they see it over and over again, you tell me what young person wouldn't want to be an expert for their families and friends. So going back to the dishes example, the water being a solute helps solvent to dissolve the caked on food. If I teach the principles of diffusion and osmosis and solute solvent concentration in the context of kitchen cleaning science, right? What I'm ensuring, that's culturally relevant, that these kids will know it because it applies to their life. Now, here's the challenge. Here's the hard part. As a teacher, I have to ask and do the work to say, where's this happening in my kids' lives so that I can figure out where to teach it? And let me let you off the hook. Teachers, it's pretty easy. You just have to ask the kids, right? Find out what they're doing. They'll tell you where you can teach it.
Amazing. Yep. Ask them. What advice do you have for science teachers or any teachers who really want to support their linguistically diverse learners, but may not yet feel confident? And maybe couple that with some resources that you have to encourage a level of engagement for all language learners.
That's a really interesting question, a difficult question. I feel like teachers are charged with solving all the world's problems, and they're supposed to do it by Wednesday of each day, and they feel like they have to do it by themselves. And it's just not right. It's not fair. But what I've learned is that teachers are incredible, and when they work together, they master things at a great depth. And so I think the first thing is remove yourself from isolation to say, I don't have to figure out how to teach my students well, but I need to find the people in my community, in my network, who can help me do a better job. Because I guarantee you, just putting out a call to fellow teachers saying, what are you doing that's working? That is all the genius that you'll ever need right there, the community. What I've learned in this COVID crisis is this has been on full display. We went from, we're not quite sure what to do digitally, to teachers having really phenomenal lesson plans ingrained that are keeping kids interactive, so much so that the software companies had to change quickly because the teachers were demanding better adaptations of the software, whether that be Zoom or Nearpod or Google. And so the big idea is that I would say build a network of teachers and you all solve the problem about what works well together. That's the biggest thing that teachers need to do. And that's what teachers do well anyway. And so I want every teacher to know you should take that burden off of yourself and get connected with a group of teachers.
Fabulous. And any resources that you can, that you have advice around that you're working on now, or anything that you want to promote that can really help synthesize this in the long run, or things that we can use in professional learning?
So we're trying to build that out. Actually, we have a web-based app that is intended to do that. It's called scienceinthecity.stanford.edu, to help teachers get connected, to host free downloadable websites, but there are many other ways to do it. I've discovered that Twitter is one of the greatest places for conversations with teachers. I've been truly impressed that teachers are exchanging information there. So I think in terms of building a professional community, there are lots of free online resources. I'll actually promote my colleague Janet Carlson runs an excellent program called the Center for the Study of Excellence in Teaching at Stanford. And so getting connected to one of those professional teaching communities is, I think, an ideal way to get started.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and being a part of this amazing conference for teachers and educators and advocates in Delaware. We really appreciate it.
Wish I could be there
know.
digitally, but next time, maybe next time. Thank you all.
Absolutely.
Wishing you well.
Thank you so much.
Sure.